My zombies, so I don't believe a lot of controversial things, but that's what sells on YouTube, so I'm gonna say something insane. The Disney Channel original movie is a magical thing. I know, crazy take, right? It's a magical journey into a world of poppy music, teen stars, and cheap budgets. They've always been a guilty pleasure of mine, but due to my animation focus, I never had the chance to cover them. Thankfully though, I no longer have to be afraid of talking about these things, because Disney finally decided to adapt one of their DCOMs into an animated franchise, so I'm very excited to finally be able to talk about a living nightmare of sorts. So if you're unaware, Zombies is totally pronounced like that, and it follows the story of Seabrook, a town split between humans, zombies, werewolves, and eventually aliens that must learn not to be racist to each other. That's an oversimplification, of course. There's classic teen romance, drama, cheerleaders, football games, dances, and all the stuff you'd expect out of a film made for a tween audience. But yeah, these films are mainly about using these monsters as an allegory for different races. But this video isn't about those films. All you need to understand is they were guilty pleasure of mine, but also a whole universe that feels like it already had its final word said a few years ago, so when Disney announced they were producing this series in the first place, it felt like a franchise extension just to be a franchise extension. And yeah, if you look at the premise of the show alone, it's apparent it serves as a way to extend the franchise without changing too much of its DNA. In a way that almost feels scared to. So, Zombies, the Reanimated series, follows Zed, Addison, and the gang repeating their senior year after entering an alien time loop. Now, of course, like many of you, I am disappointed Disney didn't have the courage to make all the lead actors super seniors who failed high school, instead going for the easy way out, but also the time loop itself is confusing in universe. See, all the events of the third film, their senior year, still happened, and every character who has shown up so far has been aware of them. So logically, they should just let them go on with their lives, and there's no reason for them to repeat this year. But sure, they need to keep the franchise going without changing too much of its premise, and this works, though is laughably confusing and has caused a lot of the show to be a punching bag in its very premise. Of course, this premise allows a lot of the cast to return in this, including some side characters that a lot of other productions would tend to ignore, which is nice. The only major recast I noticed was RuPaul as Muzzleship, which... damn, did they give this less of a budget than Amphibia? Whatever, we'll get to it. However, this also means we have a cartoon filled with non-voice actors. Though most of the time, it didn't bug me. Most of the characters here have received some new characterization that pushes their comedic aspects to the forefront, but also pushes them further into stereotypes. Zed is now more of a smooth-talking though poorly planned out jock, Addison is the overachieving perfectionist, Eliza is an overly obsessed scientist, etc, etc. I think it makes the characters stand out more from each other, and works especially well with the already cartoony styled Bucky and Aspen, who Trevor Torchman and Terry Who portray perfectly respectively, but I'd be lying if I said I instantly recognized every voice here. I think the one that stood out to me the most was Pierce Josa as Wyatt. He's more of a nervous wreck here, and I think his performance works for that, but man, it's very different from how the character appeared in the previous films. And now I've reached the part in this video where I can either give you the good or the bad things that made me want to talk about this show. So you can decide, what should I start with? The good or the just kidding? I know you clicked on this to hear me diss the art style, so here we go! Haha, it ugly. The animation and designs here are pretty rough. I've already heard all the jokes about it. Yes, this show looks like The Sims. Yes, it looks like Bitmojis. And yes, it probably should be reanimated, but... actually, I think the last one is pretty funny. You can keep that one coming. The animation here was done by Atomic Cartoons. They've done a lot of LEGO projects and shows like Spidey and His Amazing Friends, but as far as I see and as I'm aware, it appears their specialty is 2D animation, and they're pretty good at it. Same goes for Disney TVA, whose name is attached to this. Their typical affair always looks so lively. Even the studio's preschool work, which typically is in CGI, has never looked as lifeless. And it's not to say it's entirely lifeless, there's a smooth movement here and there, they gave the model some texture, the non-human style designs look alright, and Disney revealed the 2D design work on these characters and it looks okay. Not the best character design I've ever seen, but it's clear they put a lot of thought into adapting these real people into cartoon characters. So I guess the main question is, why is it like this? Well, I have two theories. Theory 1, CGI is for grown-ups. An often overlooked aspect of the deaths of theatrical 2D animation is the view that CGI films were more mature, pushed by PG ratings, Shrek's crudeness, and Pixar's more emotional style of storytelling. With 2D remaining dominant on kids' television at the same time, I think it gave some parents and studios the perception that CGI meant you was a real deal no matter what, and I think that might have translated into Zombies. Obviously, like most studios, Disney views live-action content as more mature than the animated stuff, so if they had to adapt a mature, deep franchise like this to animation, they chose CGI to try and make it appeal to the whole family. And look at that, a TVG rating? That's more mature than most Disney Channel cartoons' TVY7 rating, and might play into this idea. However, to be fair, a few years ago Descendants got an animated special that was produced in 2D, so maybe I'm looking too far into things. Series 2, it's just cheap. On a recent rewatch of Zombies 3, as one does, I noticed how they had to give Milo Manheim and Meg Donnelly the classic double booking situation, where one name is higher and the other is the most leftmost. That, combined with the fact that the film cost $40 million to make, I can only assume this Zombies cast isn't cheap anymore, and they're all here this time. Might as well make the rest of the show cheap to not spend another $40 million on this. And as an added bonus, it feels like production was fast. They were putting out shorts related to the show only a year after first announcing it. Not to mention the designs here kinda look like dolls. Let's get some toy companies to make some dolls. I'm not sure if that last bit's true. Has anyone made some Zombies dolls? Please inform me in the comments below. Now, does this make me approve the alt stat? No. Yeah, I wish this was better. I've always thought the key to a good animated series is a mix of motion and style. If an alt style is good enough, it can support moments of stifle movement, especially if it's good enough to make it seem like a design choice. Alternatively, even a less than stellar or more generic alt style can be brought up if the animation itself feels lively. In Zombies' case, however, it doesn't really have either going for it, so it has the opposite effect of serving as a barrier to anyone who would be interested in checking out this sort of series. And at certain points, it dampens the whole experience. Like with the music! A lot of what carries Zombies for me, the movies, is their poppy soundtrack and catchy tunes, which this show kind of has. Listen, I love My Year as much as the next guy. It's a perfect opening number, and I think the album version of the intro is alright. But in this show, it's weirdly mixed and doesn't feel like as much of a group number, which is a weird choice for an ensemble show like this. And as for the original songs here, they're really hit and miss. Some of them feel too derivative of the movie's tracks to serve their own purpose. Some of them are pretty catchy and nice additions to the soundtrack, but a lot of them are forgettable and feel like they serve specific scenes above being catchy. Not saying musical numbers shouldn't serve a scene, but it should be a balance of sorts for a Disney Channel franchise like this. And also, yes, they do have a song called Bein' Alpha. Yes, I know it's really bad out of context. I've seen this clip blow up multiple times already. I know it's rough. And, of course, it doesn't help that this show can't afford to do much interesting choreography or visual flair to help support the numbers. So you might be thinking so far I'm saying I hate it, right? Actually, shockingly not. Because the show does get one crucial thing right. It doesn't care about anything! The showrunners here are all the kind of people who like my tweet just calling the show alright, but also they're alumni of Phineas and Ferb and Amphibia, and if you know those show styles of comedy and gags, this should be very familiar to you. It's sort of the perfect kind of chaos. It's willing to introduce new monsters into this universe for a quick gag, do a fourth wall break to not only reference but build a whole episode around one of those shorts from last year, make being a vegetarian into a coming out metaphor, which turns into a multi-episode relationship arc, and then do a TikTok parody that can only be written by someone whose understanding of the platform is 2010's YouTube. Toys can come to life. Soda is a magical object. Characters can be cloned, be thrown into another dimension off screen, and then come back in a moment's notice when the plot needs them. Anything goes here, and it feels like the writers sort of had no limits on what was allowed with this franchise. And combined with the low budget feel the animation gives this, it sort of makes this feel surreal at points while watching. Like I almost want to cheer when they introduce a new set or character like, oh my god! Something new! So, if you're looking for a turn your mind off kind of cartoon and you're familiar with the plot of Zombies, I'd say go for it. It's definitely a guilty pleasure of mine, but at least a fun one. Now, do I think it will last that long? Probably not. It's being clowned on everywhere, and just a few months before it premiered, Disney gave in and is currently producing another Zombies movie down in New Zealand. It has a shrunken cast and new location, so not only will the show not be needed to extend the franchise, it might not represent what the franchise is in a few years. For the time being though, I like it for all the wrong reasons, and I know I'm wrong. Thankfully though, you all have wrong opinions all the time, so enjoy your mediocre cartoons and I will enjoy mine. Darn, I might have actually said something controversial. I gotta get out of here.